Good morning, everyone. I am Riya Sinha, your SST teacher. Today, we are going to start chapter number 11 of history, that is New Empires and Kingdoms. In this chapter, we will study about new empires, whatever new empires established, and kingdoms. First topic here is Prashastis and what they tell us. Arvind was supposed to be acting as Samudragupta, a famous ruler of a dynasty known as the Guptas. We know about Samudragupta from a long inscription inscribed on the Ashokan pillar at Allahabad. So it was composed as a kavya by Hari Sena, who was a poet and a minister at the court of Samudragupta. Here a boy named Arvind, he was supposed to be acting as Samudragupta, who was a famous ruler of Gupta dynasty. So we came to know about Samudragupta from an inscription which was inscribed on the Ashokan pillar at Allahabad. It was composed by Kavya, as a Kavya by Hari Sena, who was a poet at the court of Samudragupta. So this inscription is of a special kind known as Prashasti. Prashasti is a Sanskrit word meaning in praise of. While Prashastis were composed for some of the rulers we read in the previous chapter, such as Gautami Putra Shri Satkarni, they became far more important from the time of the Guptas. Now see Samudragupta's Prashasti. Samudragupta's Prashasti tells us about the poet praised the king in glowing terms as a warrior, as a king who won victories in battle, who was learned and the best of poets. He is also described as equal to the gods. The Prashasti was composed in very long sentences. See, here a part of it is given. Samudragupta the warrior, whose body was most charming, being covered with the plenteous beauty of the marks of hundreds of scars caused by battle axes, arrows, spikes, spears, barbed darts, swords, iron clubs, javelins, barbed arrows, long arrows, and many other weapons. See the map showing important cities and kingdoms. Look at the map carefully, then you will notice an area shaded in green. You will also find a series of red dots along the east coast, and then you will find areas marked in purple and blue as well. So this map is based on the information provided in the Prashasti. Hari Sena describes 4 different kinds of rulers and tells us about Samudragupta's policies towards them. First, the rulers of Aryavart, the area shaded in green on the map. This area belongs to Aryavart. Here, there were 9 rulers who were uprooted and their kingdoms were made a part of Samudragupta's empire. Second, the rulers of Dakshinapath. Here, there were 12 rulers, some of whose capitals are marked with red dots on the map. They surrendered to Samudragupta after being defeated, and he then allowed them to rule again. Third, the inner circle of neighboring states including Assam, coastal Bengal, Nepal, and a number of Jansangh in the northwest marked in purple on the map. They brought tribute, followed his orders, and attended his court. Fourth number, the rulers of the outlying areas marked in blue on the map, perhaps the descendants of the Kushans and Shakas, and the ruler of Sri Lanka, who submitted to him and offered daughters in marriage. So these were 4 types, 4 segregation in the map, which is shown here. First, the ruler of Aryavat, and the second, the rulers of Dakshinapat, third, the inner circle of neighboring states, including Assam, coastal Bengal, Nepal, and a number of Jansang, and in the fourth part, the rulers of outlying areas, which is marked in blue on the map. Genealogies. Most Prashastis also mention the ancestors of the ruler. This one mentions Samudragupta's great grandfather, father, and mother. His mother, Kumara Devi, belonged to the Lichavi Jan, while his father Chandragupta was the first ruler of the Gupta dynasty to adopt the grand title of Maharaj Adhiraj, a title that Samudragupta also used. His great grandfather and grandfather are mentioned simply as Maharajas. It seems as if the family gradually rose to importance. Through Prashasti, we came to know about rulers, about their families, their traditions, their genealogies, and everything. So, through the Prashasti of Samudragupta, we came to know about his great grandfather, father, and mother. His mother, named as Kumara Devi, she belonged to the Lichavi Jan, while his father Chandragupta was the first ruler of the Gupta dynasty who adopted the title of Maharaj Adhiraj, which was later used by Samudragupta also. Samudragupta in turn figures in the genealogies of latter rulers of the dynasty, such as his son Chandragupta II. We know about him from inscriptions and coins. He led an expedition to western India, where he overcame the last of the Shakas, and according to latter belief, his court was full of learned people, including Kalidas the poet and Aryabhat the astronomer. Okay, come to the next topic, Harshvardhan and the Harshcharit. While we can learn about the Gupta rulers from their inscriptions and coins, we can find out about some kings from biographies. Harshvardhan, who ruled near 1400 years ago, was one such ruler. His court poet Ban Bhatt wrote his biography, the Harshcharit, in Sanskrit. This gives us the genealogy of Harsh and ends with his becoming king Xuanzang, about whom we have read in the previous chapter. He also spent a lot of time at Harsha's court and left a detailed account of what he saw. Harsh was not the eldest son of his father, but became king of Thanesar after both his father and elder brother died. His brother-in-law was the ruler of Kannauj, and he was killed by the ruler of Bengal. Harsh took over the kingdom of Kannauj and then led an army against the ruler of Bengal. Although he was successful in the east and conquered both Magad and Bengal, he was not as successful elsewhere. He tried to cross the Narmada to march into the Deccan, but was stopped by a ruler belonging to the Chalukya dynasty, Pulkeshin II. Next topic, the Pallavas, Chalukyas and Pulkeshins Prashasti. The Pallavas and Chalukyas were the most important ruling dynasty in South India during this period. The kingdom of the Pallavas spread from the region around their capital Kanchipuram to the Kaveri Delta, while that of the Chalukyas was centered around the Raichur Doab between the rivers Krishna and Tungabhadra. Aihole, the capital of the Chalukyas, you all have to learn it, was an important trading center. It developed as a religious center with a number of temples. The Pallavas and Chalukyas frequently raided one another's land, especially attacking the capital cities, which were prosperous towns. The best known Chalukya ruler was Pulkeshin II, We know about him from a Prashasti composed by his court poet Ravi Kirti. This Prashasti tells us about his ancestors who are traced back through 4 generations from father to son. Pulkeshin evidently got the kingdom from his uncle. According to Ravi Kirti, he led expeditions along both the west and the east coast. Besides, he checked the advance of Harsh. There is an interesting play of words in the poem. Harsham means happiness. The poet says that after this defeat, Harsh was no longer Harsh. Pulkeshin also attacked the Pallav king who took shelter behind the walls of Kanchipuram. But the Chalukya victory was short-lived. Ultimately, both the Pallavs and the Chalukyas gave way to new rulers belonging to the Rashtrakud and Chola dynasties, about which you all will learn in the next class. Okay, so how were these kingdoms administered? As in the case of earlier kings, land revenue remained important for these rulers, and the village remained the basic unit of administration. There were some new developments as well. Kings adopted a number of steps to win the support of men who were powerful, either economically or socially, or because of their political and military strength. For instance, some important administrative posts were now hereditary. This means that sons succeeded fathers to these posts. For example, the poet Harisena was a Mahadand Nayak or chief judicial officer like his father. Sometimes one person held many offices. For instance, beside being a Mahadand Nayak, Harisena was a Kumar Amatya, meaning an important minister, and a Sandhi Vigrahaka, meaning a minister of war and peace. Besides, important men probably had a say in local administration. These included the Nagar Shresthi or chief banker or merchant of the city, the Sarthvaha or a leader of the merchant caravans, the Pratham Kulika or the chief craftsman, and the head of the Kaist or scribes. These policies were reasonably effective, but sooner or later, some of these powerful men grew strong enough to set up independent kingdoms. Now see next topic, a new kind of army. Like earlier rulers, some of these kings maintained a well-organized army with elephants, chariots, cavalry and foot soldiers. Besides, there were military leaders who provided the king with troops whenever he needed them. They were not paid regular salaries. Instead, some of them received grants of land. They collected revenue from the land and used this to maintain soldiers and horses and provide equipments for warfare. These men were known as Samantas. Whenever the ruler was weak, Samant tried to become independent. And they used to establish their own kingdom. Now see next topic, assemblies in the southern kingdom. The inscriptions of the Pallavs mention a number of local assemblies. These included the Sabha, which was an assembly of Brahmin landowners. This assembly functioned through sub-committees which looked after irrigation, agricultural operations, making roads, local temples, etc. The Ur was a village assembly found in areas where the landowners were not Brahmins. And the Nagaram was an organization of merchants. It is likely that these assemblies were controlled by rich and powerful landowners and merchants. Many of these local assemblies continued to function for centuries. Okay, that's all for today. Hope you all understood all the covered topics well. Thank you and have a nice day.